Well, I'm really excited this morning to welcome Jonathan Lee for a virtual interview about Disciplined Agile. Let's jump right in. Jonathan, you've been involved with PMI for a lot of years now. Why do you think PMI is making this big push into Disciplined Agile right now?
I think PMI's ultimate goal is to provide better guidance to Agile practitioners and project management professionals so that these practitioners can do their work more effectively without having to spend a lot of time trying to figure things out. DA's philosophy, or its agnostic hybrid approach to leveraging good practices from a variety of sources, aligns very well with how PMI envisions um, the skill sets of future project professionals. Several years ago, PMI embarked on its transformation, and they talked about the skills of project managers in the future. They call it like spectrum of approaches or value delivery landscape. And it said that project managers, a good project managers that is, needs to have the knowledge and the experience in the predictive, iterative, incremental, agile, hybrid, or next practices. So when you look at the DA's approach and the fact that it's agnostic and it promotes the ability to practice various different life cycles, what PMI has envisioned several years ago and what DA brings, they go very well together.
You know, the most recent annual State of Agile report lists Disciplined Agile as a scaling approach. And I know Disciplined Agile is careful to say they're not a framework, but rather they're a toolkit. What's the difference, and does the language really matter?
In 2000 and up through December of 2018, DA did in fact call itself as a framework. However, it recognized that it really wasn't a framework because it was not prescriptive like a typical framework. So DA is a toolkit because DA offers practitioners options to choose how they want to work and provides them with a trade-off to consider as they select the options that they want to work with. So regardless of whether that practices comes from Scrum or SAFe or traditional XP or Kanban or any other methods or frameworks out there, DA is really agnostic. So it's not a framework. DA is a toolkit.
Looking back, PMI launched the PMI ACP, or Agile Certified Practitioner certification, back in 2012, and it never really took off like some of the other PMI certifications. What do you think will be different about Disciplined Agile and the set of certifications that go along with it?
I would answer that question in three parts. First, approach. The way ACP certification approach versus DA are different. So for PMI ACP, which was introduced in 2012, requirements for ACP to obtain it was very significant. It required 2,000 hours of project management work or prior to getting the ACP, or have a PMP certificate already. And you needed to have 1,500 hours of working on Agile projects already. And then obviously taking 21 hours of contact hours of training and up to 3 hours long of exam and then pass that. And then only then were you able to obtain the ACP certification versus some of the other certifications that are out there in Agile that you can easily obtain. So I think that's one of the areas why it lost the market share. Now, if you look at it from a DA perspective, DA is taking a different approach. It's what I would call almost a hybrid approach. When you first take the Disciplined Agile course, then you automatically get the designation of the Disciplined Agilist. Now, from there, if you pass the exam, then you obtain Certified Disciplined Agilist. And then from there, if you have 2 or more years of experience, then you now obtain or can qualify for, with a reference check, Certified Disciplined Agile Practitioner's Certificate. If you are someone that has 2+ years of experience leading the Agile team, then you can get Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master Certificate, and so on. So DA has put together this hybrid model where you offer a instant gratification to those that do take the course. They get some designation, and then you can work your way up. So I think the approach is completely different, and I think it's a very smart one. Second one is around the content. So DA is not a framework, and it's very complementary and enhances those that already have Agile backgrounds. So, you're not necessarily competing against Scrum or SAFe or any other Agile certificate or certification, because it's a complementary. For those of that have already a certificate, they can also take the DA and then enhance their skills, right? And the other thing that DA provides is that it provides structure. It shows you a bigger picture of all the Agile practices, because it it harnesses all the good practices and then puts it into the toolkit for the practitioner's benefit that takes a DA course, right? So from a content perspective, DA certainly has a again a more positive outlook. Now, thirdly, from the marketing perspective, I believe PMI has been doing a pretty good job building a momentum, and it's generating a pretty good buzz. And recently, they also launched a Basics of DA online course, which is an overview of what Disciplined Agile is. And I think that's getting a pretty good traction as well. So I think just overall, everything that's been happening these days with approach and the content and the marketing, I think there is a great future for Disciplined Agile.
Who do you think is the market for Disciplined Agile training and certification? Who do you think will benefit the most?
I would say it would be the existing Agile practitioners of Scrum, SAFe, XP, LESS, or any other Agile frameworks that are out there. DA is for those Agile practitioners that wants to further improve their way of working. And I believe these Agile practitioners, when they take the course, will see some of the things that they weren't aware of, some of the good practices from other frameworks that they weren't aware that they should have or could have leveraged in their project. So I think that's going to help them a great deal. And then I think the second group would be the project managers that has not yet embraced Agile practices for whatever the reason, And then as many of you probably already can attest to this, there's an extreme Agilist and there's the extreme project managers, and they never really got along, right? And so for project managers to see the way DA practices the Agile from a disciplined Agile perspective, I think a project manager will appreciate and be able to embrace those Agile practices. So I think those will be the two top target audiences.
Why should people learn about Disciplined Agile? What do they stand to gain?
Well, first of all, I think they'll understand or know all the options available that they didn't know before, because you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know, right? And when you take Disciplined Agile course, you're going to realize all the things that perhaps you've been doing right, or possibly ones that you haven't been doing right, and also things that you weren't even aware of, right? So it's gonna open individual to new ideas, a new way of doing things, right? Because DA, toolkit contains vast resources of good practices that one can or the team can leverage. So there's much to gain.
One of the things that I noticed when I went through the Disciplined Agile training was they kept referring to themselves as pragmatic, and that was a differentiator from other approaches. What do they mean by pragmatic?
Well, I do believe that DA approach is very much pragmatic or practical. It's not rigid like the practice of purism. DA focuses on the decisions that one needs to consider, options available, and the trade-off of those options, right? It's not just saying, hey, here's a framework, do it this way, right? And very be rigid about it. Instead, DA is very practical about it. So it does not mandate you or your team to follow a specific prescriptive way, and just because that's what the framework tells you to do, but rather it's practical, and it allows the practitioners to do what makes sense given the team's ability or the current resources or I guess the context, right? And so, yeah, definitely, it is pragmatic.
Jonathan, a lot of organizations have implemented SAFe or other scaling approaches. Would they benefit from training in Disciplined Agile?
Yes, of course. The answer is definitely yes, because all of us can still improve. It's all about continuous improvement. And in Discipline Agile, there's a concept called guided continuous improvement, where it says in Agile, people often say, hey, fail fast, right? And learn and then fail fast. If it's not, and then try something else. But instead, through a guided continuous improvement, you can succeed faster.
I know there's a number of different organizations that have challenges with adopting Agile because they have governance requirements or other restrictions. Do you think Disciplined Agile can help them?
Yes, absolutely. DA embraces governance, a lean governance. So it's risk-based governance. So it provides just enough governance needed to conduct necessary checks and balances for organization and not hold up the team from moving forward with a lot of so-called paperwork, right? So I think definitely organizations that have a level of governance will be able to embrace DA's approach.
You've invested quite a bit of your time and energy in mastering Disciplined Agile and becoming an instructor. What is it that you see that others might not see about this particular approach?
I quickly realized that Discipline Agile really aligned very well with my past experiences and beliefs, as well as in delivering solutions to customers. And I think many of the project management professionals, as well as Agile practitioners, will appreciate and value Discipline Agile once they get to know more about it. I always believed in leveraging good practices from various sources, whether it's traditional or agile. I always said, hey, there are good things in traditional as well as the good things or good practices in agile. Why can't we use both of those, right? Harness the good practice from multiple sources, and that's exactly what Discipline Agile is doing. It's going out there, looking at all the agile and traditional practices, and then harnessing the good practices and putting it into the DA toolkit for our benefits.
For those of us who have our PMP certification, should we go ahead and get certification in Disciplined Agile? Will that help us?
Answer is absolutely yes. You should definitely consider pursuing DA certification because you're going to learn about how to deliver value to customer faster through agile practices. And it's going to help you minimize waste. And you're going to basically learn about all the various options available in agile practices that will be relevant for your organization or your situation. And you're going to learn about principles of DA and its mindset. And you'll be able to walk away with newly gained knowledge that you can apply back at workplace. And, as you know, the more knowledge you have, the more skills you build, it's going to only help you advance in your career. And in this digital transformation or digital disruption period that we are all currently living in, you need to know and practice and be agile because things are changing so fast, so quickly, and learning the approach of agile will be critical to your success and also to your organization's success. And this is the perfect time to learn because PMI has acquired Discipline Agile, and it is available for you to take advantage of it.
We hear a lot about Scrum certification these days and SAFe. Do you think that Disciplined Agile is going to become just as popular over the course of the next couple of years?
Yes, I know what you mean. And I was also in your shoes about 8 months ago regarding familiarity of Discipline Agile. Um, as you may already know, or as many of you may know, Discipline Agile was founded by Scott Ambler and Mark Lyons, and they had a small outfit of I believe around 8 people, and so they didn't have a whole lot of resources to advertise and promote Discipline Agile. The organization spent most of its time building out the DA toolkit and the knowledge base. So now that they have been acquired by PMI, and PMI, you know who PMI is. Everybody know who PMI is. And so there's going to be a significant investment in the marketing of Discipline Agile because PMI knows how great Discipline Agile toolkit is. And so there will definitely be a much bigger presence in the industry over the next 1 to 2 years. So get on board and make things happen.
Well, Jonathan, thank you very much for joining for this virtual interview, and I hope it helps a lot of people out there. Thank you.